will go high. Love, grace, humility will win. And then you tell everybody to go to hell. You think that's going to work for you, Coach White? Think that's going to work for you? The reality of the situation is none of that stuff will win if it's left up to you, Stephanie White. Because you're not handling it right. You playing right into their hands. Right into their hands.
What happens when Stephen A. Smith stops analyzing the Indiana Fever and starts questioning Stephanie White's leadership directly? A heated controversy surrounding Sophie Cunningham, DiJonai Carrington, and a disputed coaching decision has now placed White under an uncomfortable spotlight, while Caitlin Clark and her teammates appear ready to defend her. But what exactly did Stephen A. do that made him challenge White so bluntly? And could this confrontation expose a much deeper problem inside Indiana?
Player safety is always a top priority for me. One of the things I pride myself on is my relationships with players. I thought the play got called right. Thankfully, Sophie's okay. Was it egregious? Absolutely. When you have a chance to watch that over and over and over on replay, you can see that. I didn't have that in real time. The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win. It won't win. We are united. We are connected. We will.
Stephen A. Smith just turned the Indiana Fever's latest controversy into something much bigger. Because this time, the question isn't simply whether Stephanie White made a bad judgment call.
The reality of the tense situation that the WNBA, and especially you as the coach of the Indiana Fever, is involved in. There are folks in Indiana at a home game booing you. You ain't the road team, you the home team, you the home coach, and they booing you. And Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark can speak up for you all they want to, as they did, and as they should have.
The question is whether the Fever coach has lost the confidence of the very people she is supposed to lead. And Stephen A. Smith is now demanding answers that are becoming increasingly difficult to avoid.
I've been a defender, the coach of the Fever. Get her out of there. Get her out of there. Fire her ass today. I don't want her back on that bench. Stop defending the other players. Oh, she plays hard, DJ. That's just her being her. You see Caitlin in the press conference almost cover her ears and her eyes. Defend your players. First of all, you're wrong. It was a dirty play. She's gone. But when do you ever see in like the NBA, a coach not defend their own players? She hasn't done it with Caitlin when Caitlin got punched.
The controversy began with a play that has somehow managed to produce more drama than some entire WNBA games. During the Indiana Fever's August 8 matchup against the Chicago Sky, DiJonai Carrington was ejected after making contact with Sophie Cunningham around the head and neck area on a breakaway play. The officials assessed the foul as a flagrant 2, which meant Carrington was sent out of the game immediately.
What happened when this young lady got ejected from a WNBA game the other day for a flagrant foul on Sophie Cunningham? Did y'all see that? She got ejected from the game for that flagrant foul right there. And I'll be damned if that wasn't a flagrant 2. She mugged her. Damn near came across like decapitating her, for crying out loud. That was definitely a hard foul. Make no mistake about it. Nobody can argue about it. You can say what you want. We know what we saw. No way around it. DiJonai Carrington foul was clearly unnecessary. It was a flagrant foul penalty too. It was absolutely positively correct.
On its own, that should have been the end of the basketball story. There was a hard foul, the officials reviewed it, a decision was made, and everybody could move on. Except, nobody moved on. Instead, the incident exploded into a much wider argument involving player safety, coaching, social media, race, politics, fan loyalty, and, eventually, the future of Stephanie White in Indiana. Suddenly, the Fever were not just dealing with what happened on the court, they were dealing with what their own coach said about it afterward. That explanation might sound reasonable until you understand why so many people were unconvinced. Because cameras don't care about press conferences, personal relationships, or carefully chosen explanations. They simply record what happened, and the footage circulating online has given critics plenty of material to question Stephanie White's account of the incident involving DiJonai Carrington and Sophie Cunningham. That has created an uncomfortable contradiction between what viewers believe they saw and what White said she saw. Online discussions have focused heavily on whether her explanation was consistent with the available footage. And that is precisely where Stephen A. Smith entered the conversation.
That Stephanie is stuck in is she knows DiJonai is a good person, but now she's coaching people who are likely taking money from the Heritage Foundation, has a large MAGA racist fan base, and they didn't like that she defended DiJonai.
Take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my.
Smith did not approach the issue as if it were merely a debate over whether a foul should have been upgraded from a common foul to a flagrant. Instead, he went after the larger leadership question. And that distinction is important because his criticism was directed at White's responsibility as the head coach of the Indiana Fever. His argument was essentially this: if you are the head coach, watching the game is not an optional side quest. You are supposed to know what is happening on the floor, recognize when one of your players has taken a dangerous hit, and understand when a situation requires an immediate response. When one of your players is left on the floor after a violent collision, fans naturally expect the coach to react before somebody on social media has enough time to upload 3 camera angles, add dramatic music, and create another layer of scrutiny around the situation. That connection has fueled speculation from people who believe White's familiarity with Carrington may have influenced how she initially interpreted the play. However, that theory also needs to be treated carefully, because knowing a player does not automatically mean a coach will defend everything that player does.
Flagrant to every single damn time in the NBA and the WNBA. But you know things have devolved when you've got the Attorney General for the state of Florida saying that's why WNBA games ain't here, because guess what? We are the prosecutor. Attorney General James Uthmeyer, the WNBA knows better than to play games down here in Florida, because I'll be charging people with assault. I should probably clarify: assault and battery. That is from the Attorney General of the...
Coaches spend years working with athletes, learning their personalities, understanding their tendencies, and developing relationships that can continue long after a player leaves the team. White supporters can reasonably argue that she was describing what she believed she had seen at game speed, rather than deliberately protecting a former player. Her critics, however, are asking a different question, and it is one that is much harder to dismiss. Would White have reacted the same way if the situation involved someone she had never coached? That question has become one of the biggest reasons this controversy refuses to disappear. Because once trust becomes part of the conversation, every explanation starts getting examined under a microscope. Then, another moment changed the temperature completely. White addressed the growing criticism before the Fever faced the New York Liberty. And instead of delivering the carefully polished statement coaches usually give when controversy surrounds their team, White essentially told her critics to go to hell. There is something almost beautifully chaotic about talking about grace and humility before essentially informing your critics that they can take a long walk in the opposite direction. It is the kind of statement that sounds as though two completely different personalities were fighting over control of the microphone, or not.
You're wrong, but it starts to make me think you care more about the overlying social issues and not pissing off other people in the league and saying men can play in the league, because she's one of those players. Coaches, when asked, always is taking the far, left side of it. This isn't politics. Your player got assaulted. Defend your player in the press conference. Be like, yeah, that was a dirty play. She should have hit the showers. She acts like she's the coach of the other team. I don't care if she's the best X's and O's, when she's not. Get her the hell out of there. Either defend your players or get...
Still, the emotion behind White's comments was obvious. She was no longer responding only to one controversial foul. She was responding to what she viewed as a much larger attempt to divide her team and attack her character. And, to be fair, there is an argument worth acknowledging on White's side. Being a head coach in the WNBA is already demanding, but being the head coach of the Indiana Fever, with Caitlin Clark at the center of one of the biggest stories in women's basketball, brings an entirely different level of scrutiny. Every decision becomes content. Every substitution becomes content. Every facial expression becomes content. And, apparently, every controversial foul now receives enough analysis to qualify for its own congressional hearing. The Fever have become one of the league's biggest attractions, which means White is coaching under a microscope that very few coaches experience. However, Stephen A. Smith's argument is not necessarily about the standings. It is about leadership. That brings us to one of the most uncomfortable parts of this entire situation, because Fever fans booed Stephanie White inside her own building.
The dumbest coach I've ever seen. Love, grace, humility, integrity. And you can go to hell if you don't love, grace, and integrity who I want. She is the dumbest human being to ever coach a professional sport. I say love wins. I will always have their back, except you didn't with Alyssa Thomas, except you didn't with DiJonai Carrington, except you didn't going back, except you never have. Hell, you're so stupid you can't even tell us what a woman is. You can't even tell us the difference.
Think about how unusual that is. White was not walking into Chicago, New York, or Las Vegas as the opposing coach. She was walking into her own arena, surrounded by fans who were supposed to provide home court energy, and some of those same fans were booing her. Smith highlighted that exact point when he delivered his reality check, emphasizing that White was not the road team, she was the home team's coach. That is no longer ordinary criticism. That is a warning light. The situation became even more complicated because Caitlin Clark publicly defended White. Clark reportedly said the booing made her feel sick and made it clear that the players had their coach's back. She also indicated that the Fever were determined not to lose that game for White. That response matters because it creates two very different realities surrounding the same basketball team. Inside the locker room, White appears to have support. Outside the locker room, the criticism is getting louder. That is a brutal reality check because players supporting their coach is powerful, but it does not necessarily settle questions about coaching decisions.